What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel, and our 2023 college football predictions continue for the 2023 college football season. Up next are the Auburn Tigers, a team coming off a disappointing season last year for 2022. They missed out on a bowl game. They went 5-7 overall last year, so yeah, it was definitely a big disappointment from this Auburn team. Looking at this Auburn team this year, they did fire Brian Harsin, so they have a new head coach with Hugh Freeze. How good of a coach will he be for this Auburn team? We haven't really seen that kind of Auburn, team ever since Gus Maslon was fired, and now it seems like Auburn football program is now falling apart. But I think Hugh Freeze can get it done. I think he has what it takes to probably lead Auburn to really successful years. I think it's a pretty interesting hire, perhaps, on that side, but Auburn fans are, not a little bit happy with the hiring of Hugh Freeze, but I think it's definitely a good hire. Looking at this Auburn team heading into 2023, they brought a ton of guys in the transfer portal, especially with, Peyton Thorne, the transfer coming over from Michigan State. I think that definitely helps out their offense just a little bit defensively. I think they'll be pretty good on that side of the football as well. But looking at the schedule this year for this Auburn team, they'll play UMass, Cal on the road, and Samford, and New Mexico State in the non-conference. So they don't have a tough non-conference schedule. California will definitely be a tough task, though, on the road on September the 9th. That's out of the Pac-12. And then you look at their opponents outside of the SEC West. They'll play Vanderbilt on the road, and they'll also play Georgia, which they play Georgia every single year. That game is on September the 30th. That's a home game for Auburn. So that's the good news. You get Georgia at home. But let's go game by game now and give you an official prediction here for this Auburn team for 2023. So they start things off here with UMass on September the 2nd. I don't think Auburn has, any problems in this game. This is a game that they should win pretty easily. I think they start out 1-0 pretty easily with a high-scoring, points here against UMass. And I think they knock off UMass to start out in 2023. And I got them starting out 1-0. Then it's Cal on the road next year on September 9th. Big non-conference game here, the SEC versus the Pac-12. When it comes to these SEC versus Pac-12 matchups, it seems like the SEC really dominates every single year. We saw Georgia do that last year against Oregon. This year, Auburn is playing a Pac-12 team for the first time since 2018, and the last time they played a Pac-12 team was against Oregon. And, I think Auburn has the better roster in this game. I really don't expect, Cal to be all that good this year. However, this is a road game. It won't be an easy game here for Auburn. It will be a tough place to play. End of the day, though, I think Auburn has just got way too much talent on their roster. I think the transfer portal kind of helps them out as well. And I think Auburn gets a close win here on the road at Cal, and a pretty close one here. And I think they take care of business against Samford as well on September 16th. So I got the Tigers starting out 3-0 before playing Texas A&M on the road next year on September 23rd. Texas A&M brought a lot of production coming back this year. They got some guys in the transfer portal as well helping them out. But, this is a pretty even matchup between these two teams. I think it's definitely a close game, perhaps. Maybe it can go all four quarters. But I think Texas A&M just has way too much talent on their roster. But I think Auburn will compete for a half or two, maybe perhaps. But I think, Texas A&M will pull away in the second half, and I think the Aggies do give Auburn their first loss of the season. So I got Auburn's record now falling to 3-1. Then they'll play Georgia the next week here on September 30th. So their schedule kind of gets more brutal down the stretch. They'll play Georgia, though, here at home. Yes, this is a home game for Auburn, so it's maybe a potential that maybe Auburn is not focused on Texas A&M on that road game on September the 23rd. They're just ready for Georgia the next week. And I think that could be the case in this game. I think Auburn will compete in this game, but Georgia, I just think, is way too much talented on their roster. I think it's kind of similar to the Texas A&M game. I think, Georgia pulls away in the second half. I know Auburn's at home in this one, but I just don't really see the Tigers beating Georgia this year. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Auburn has a long way to go before they compete with Georgia again in the SEC. So I think Auburn loses that one to Georgia at home, and that puts the record at 3-2. They get a bye week after that Georgia game. They'll play on the road at LSU. Tough place to play here in Death Valley. Auburn, obviously, it's a game that they probably, really can get close with here, but it's on the road at Death Valley. It's a tough place to play. LSU has got a lot of talent on their roster. They got a ton of guys in the transfer portal coming in. And you look at three of these straight games, Texas A&M on the road, Georgia at home, and then LSU on the road. It just gets more brutal for Auburn here. And I think that's going to kind of be the similar thing with Georgia and Texas A&M. I think Auburn competes for a half or two, but then LSU will pull away in the second half. So I think LSU beats Auburn here and gives them their third loss of the season. That's their third loss in a row there, and that comes on the road at LSU, and that puts their record at 3-3. Ole Miss at home next year on October 21st. Ole Miss has that high-powered offense. They're going to really score some points in this game, but this is not going to be an easy task here for Ole Miss. I think Auburn will compete in this game, and this is a pretty emotional game here for Hugh Freeze going up against his former team here as well. So you're kind of expecting a high-scoring shootout-type ball game here between these two teams. I think that's going to be the case in this game here. However, Auburn does have home field advantage in this one, and this is a tough game to call for me. With that being said, I like the Tigers here in a close one over the Rebels. I think it's a shootout here, and I do like Auburn here to win it at the end of the day. It's one of those upset alert type games as well if Ole Miss was ranked in the top 25. So I think Auburn wins that one. That puts their record at 4-3. Mississippi State at home the next week on October 28th. So they'll play back-to-back Mississippi teams here in the back-to-back weeks here. I think Auburn, has home field advantage in this one. I think both of these teams are pretty even. I think, Mississippi State with a new era coming in, it's going to be hard to tell how good this Mississippi State team will be. I think it's kind of similar to the Ole Miss game, though. It will be a shootout-type ball game, but I think Auburn, with them being at home, I think they do get it done here in this one. So I got Auburn defeating Mississippi State there on October the 28th. That puts them at 5-3 for 2023. Then they get to the month of November. They'll play Vanderbilt on the road next year on November 4th. This is one of those trap games here for Auburn. It's definitely not going to be an easy game. And you look at both of these teams, they're definitely similar from last year. They both missed out on bowl games. However, Auburn really turned out to be just really disappointing. But then Vanderbilt just was a surprise team. They won 5 games last year, and they won a couple games in the SEC. Now, Vanderbilt, I think, will compete in this game. I think it's definitely one of those shootout-type ball games. I think this is kind of Auburn's third straight shootout here with Ole Miss's Mississippi State, and then it will go on to Vanderbilt. So, yeah, this is a tough one to call. I think both of these rosters are pretty even, and, at the end of the day, it kind of, was a tough one to call, so I just had to go with home field advantage. I like the Condors in this game. I know Auburn fans will not agree with that pick, but I like Vanderbilt here in an upset over the Tigers here, and I got Auburn losing that one on the road at Vanderbilt, so that puts their record at 5-4. Then it's Arkansas on the road next year on November 11th. So yeah, Auburn coming off that loss to Vanderbilt, I think they're really not focused here heading into the Arkansas game. I think Arkansas has a lot of question marks heading into this year. You look at both of these teams' rosters, they're pretty even as well. Both teams, kind of struggled last year, but Auburn was the most disappointing team as well. But I think Arkansas, with them being at home, like I said, it's kind of similar to the Vanderbilt game. It's a tough one to call for me. With that being said, I like Arkansas here at home over the Tigers of Auburn. And I think they win that one there at home on November the 11th against the Tigers. That puts their record at 5-5, but I think Auburn takes care of business against New Mexico State, and that puts them into a bowl game with a 6-5 record. Then it's Alabama here to end things out on November 25th. I done Alabama's prediction video a long time ago. I already predicted Alabama to win this one. I don't think it will be an easy game, though, for Alabama. I think this game goes into the fourth quarter. I think it comes down to the wire like it did a couple years ago at Jordan-Hare, where Auburn almost really beat them. So, yeah, it's going to be really an interesting game. So I think Auburn definitely will compete in this one, but I think Alabama, just overall the better roster and the better talent on their roster as well, will get it done. So I think Alabama wins a close one here on the road at Jordan-Hare, and I think Auburn finishes 6-6 for 2023. I think that's a fair prediction for Auburn. I think 5-7 is very possible, though, for first-year head coach Hugh Freeze. It wouldn't really shock me if this team went 5-7, but I think best case scenario would be 7-5, perhaps, but maybe this is a possible that they can go 8-4, but I just really don't see that happening. 5-7, 4-8 would probably be their worst case scenario. It would definitely be a hard one if they went 4-8. That would just be really disappointing, and maybe Hugh Freeze is not the right head coach for Auburn. But I think 6-6, they at least make it to a bowl game this year in Hugh Freeze's first year. So that's my prediction here for the Auburn Tigers. Let me guys know what you think about this Auburn team. What do you think their record is in 2023? And stay tuned here for more sports content videos on the Lucas Ross Sports Channel.